we need to trade our time in for money because we need the money to live. Well, what if you have that money without having to spend the time to get it?
Welcome to The Path to Wealth, the show about well-being, fulfillment, and financial freedom. And I'm your host, Hannes Henty. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Today we have Amy and Cory Whittaker. They're multifamily real estate syndicators. They have a zest for life. They like nature. They like the outdoors. They love yoga. So that's very close to my heart. Amy and Cory, welcome you to The Path to Wealth.
Thank you very much for having us, Hans.
Yeah, thanks, Hans. It's really great to be here.
So one of the things I always like to explore how did your journey naturally unfold? For example, where did your original passion for real estate come from? If I can say it's a passion.
Some of it was accidental. Some of it was driven off of wanting to get out of a corporate career. The accidental part was we moved to a small town in Missouri, and both of us are yoga teachers. At the time, I wasn't, but Amy was a yoga teacher. So she saw kind of a niche that, hey, well, let's open up a yoga studio in this small town. So we went looking for different places. Ended up buying a building on the square, like an entire building, five units. It was needed a lot of work. It was decrepit, and there's basically no tenants in there. So ended up that Amy never built her yoga studio because really it didn't kind of fit into the town that we're in. Yoga wasn't really as well known. It's more
so it wasn't really a niche. It was really. just not a thing there.
Yeah, exactly. So and anyways, we bought that, and at the time, and 2 months later I got laid off. So it was like, oh no, what do we do now? We have an empty building. But it was a great learning experience. So we were able to rehab the building, learn a lot of things as far as rehab, working with contractors. Did a lot myself, unfortunately. So that's kind of like having a job on the side. But really just work with people in the community to fill it up. We ended up getting some really good tenants, having it filled completely till we sold it in August. So it was really exciting, kind of brighten up that area of the square. The square was a little bit dead, so to say, and really started to brighten things up. So I don't know, what were you excited about that?
Oh, well, I think it's the changes that came about in the square that happened as a result of the tenant we ended up having in one of our units. It was a retail boutique.
Yeah.
And this probably year 2 or 3 into owning the building. So they really built up their business, and from that, other boutiques started to set up around the town square. So it became more of a shopping destination rather than some place that was dead on the weekends, because it was near a courthouse, and so before it was insurance people and lawyers and bail bonds offices around, but that started to change. So that positive impact kind of inspired us to pursue more real estate.
So it sounds a bit like accidental landlord, and then actually seeing almost the value it adds to the overall community by having the right kind of tenant that then kind of gives some life to the corner instead of just some dead 9-to-5 business, maybe like a lawyer that has very little traffic. So how did you go from owning a small commercial space like that to purchasing your first multifamily property? How did you close the gap, or what inspired you to scale up?
It's been a long time dream for Cory to be free of his W-2 job and create a business of his own and kind of have the freedom to be creative in what he does. So we thought if we could get some passive income in some way, shape, or form, that would help channel that dream towards us. And we started thinking about renting single-family homes. A lot of us start that way. And then Cory started listening to the podcasts and started to realize we need to scale up faster to achieve the level of income that we would like passively to sustain our style of living.
Yeah.
which isn't that grand, but it's comfortable. So Cory was listening to the radio show, guys, real estate radio show, and one of the mentors that we're with now came on and had inspired Cory to kind of follow him a little bit further to investigate.
Yeah.
And that's when we came upon the program to become educated in multifamily.
And Cory, where did that hunger for freeing you from your W-2 job come from? Like, I mean, I think many of us share it, but what was that kind of moment that struck for you where you're like, hey, this is not for me. I want a different life altogether, and I will seek solutions?
Yeah, unfortunately, it happened a long time ago. Like, I got into corporate right out of college, and I enjoyed it for a while. I was working as a software engineer, and it really kind of happened in my late 20s, I would say. I was working for a startup company, and I worked for a lot of startup companies, so really long hours, some brutal bosses. For instance, like I would have to sneak out of the building, literally, like walk around the long way around the hallway just to avoid offices to get out of the office at like 5:30, 6 o'clock at night, or else I would be yelled at. So
for the boss, it was still afternoon. You call it night. You wanted to.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. It's still 9 o'clock somewhere. So so that was. To me, that was like, I need to have some freedom of my own. I don't want to spend the rest of my life just at somebody else's beck and call. And then a little bit later, it was more about I learned more about financial freedom as well. I always was happy with putting everything in the 401k, letting somebody else control my money. But a little bit later on, I realized, like, wait a minute, there's other things that we can do, like actually owning a business or investing is a really great way to achieve some of the time freedom that we want to have. So that those two things kind of occurred. So unfortunately, it was a long time happening. I still stayed in my career for longer than I would like to have. I'm still there, but
yeah. So did you have any guidance on the way, or how did you find the right kind of information to actually for example, put you towards investing or starting your own business? Because it seems that there is a challenge for some people to kind of close the gap. Okay, they know they want a better life, but they don't know quite how to get there, or that investing is even a thing.
That's a good question. For me, it's really when podcasting came out. I mean, it's really I was listening to it when they weren't so popular, and there was
the first time when they came out 2005, or the second time when they got a run around maybe 5 to 7 years ago.
Yeah, it was 2005. I was like, this is the best thing ever. I love this, so I would get some good information off of that. And a lot of them referred to books, so it was they talk about certain things. And that was a slow process too. So it was more like, basically tapping on my brain slowly, until it finally cracked open. And I'm like, wait a minute, there's some other opportunities. There's some other ways to do things out there.
Yeah. So do you feel like you were kind of the way you grew up, and maybe both of you can take that one. Do you feel like there was a certain mindset? I usually refer to it kind of as a software that is installed on us that kind of keeps you maybe an employee rather than a business owner or an investor. And you said, it took quite some time to chip away at that. So it almost feels like there needed to be a complete shift in what we've been taught, or maybe what we saw, to, okay, there's a different way to do this.
So you can start. You would a great one, yeah.
We definitely agree with the concept of the software being uploaded in childhood, because it was pretty much repeated to me as soon as I became old enough to earn money, is to save and to put it away for retirement, because when you don't have a job and you're too old to work, you're going to need that money.
Did
And
they also remind you of the impact of inflation in that part?
Yeah.
just a little. So Corey's awakening, as you might call it, came a lot sooner than it did for me. He actually had to chip away at me after his awakening to get me to also open my eyes to the fact that the way I'm doing it isn't really getting us what we need to have for our later years, and that there are other vehicles to accelerate that growth of wealth.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
you call it awakening. It almost, I mean, it ties into the spiritual aspect, I think, so well. There, I think there's multiple awakenings we go through in life. One might be the financial mechanics of like, this is what it takes to live a different life altogether. And I think there are interesting statistics around that, because it's actually just like 5% or a little bit more than that of people that actually financially independent. So I would truly say there's some level of awakening to it. And what do you think were the misconceptions that were given on your path to your adulthood that you really parted with today?
Oh, college. I hate to say that, but my dad told us get good grades in school, so you get into a good college, and therefore you get a good job, so you can buy a house and a car, and you can live comfortably, maybe get married, all that stuff, and then you save into your 401k as you work your adult license, so when you retire, that 401k and your Social Security will be there for you. And honestly, I am not using the education that I got from college in my adult
Yeah.
life. I kind of feel like it was a great place to make friends. I have lifelong friends from college. And I think that would make me richer than the education that I got from it.
I think there's actually a whole comment on that from Elon Musk. He also says it's more a thing for social reason. You get to interact with people, you make some friends, but beyond that, it may be not as useful as people put it.
Yeah.
So I definitely departed from that belief that, I'm sure college does teach other things that are not so based in the education itself, but maybe how it forms character.
Yeah, for you, it's really like college, work, and like as soon as you get out of college, you go to work, and then you just work. Don't do anything fun, and then save as much as you can for retirement. Then you retire,
and then you can have fun.
Yeah, and then you get sick, and then you die.
Yeah.
Because you work so hard.
Then when we are somewhat old and out of energy, in our late 60s, then we have a little bit of money, but our body can't take the travels anymore that we can do with the little bit of money we have.
Exactly.
That's kind of what we're sold, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So when you look at it and you had that kind of financial awakening again, I'll use the same word, but at the same time, it kind of takes some clarity to pull away and peel away as the misconceptions. And I mean, as people that embrace yoga, I would say that's the same that I've seen on my journey embracing yoga. It's the peeling away on the misconceptions of maybe the culture, or even just being told who we think we are, those kind of things. Was that a journey that kind of was simultaneously to you, or what came first? What made you embrace, for example, yoga in the original teachings?
Yoga, interestingly enough, started because I hurt my back.
For both of us, it was health reasons.
Yeah. The physical therapist told me to go to yoga. So we were living in California at the time, and we started to go to yoga there. We liked it. It was more of a physical practice then for us. We moved back to the East Coast in New Hampshire, and did it a little bit here and there again. Again, it was more of a physical practice. And then when we moved to another town in New Hampshire, we really started to embrace it. And then Amy became a teacher before I did, but we really kind of immersed ourselves. I think for a while it was still more physical, but when I got into Ashtanga, I started getting into more of the like the non-physical side of yoga, and that's when it
Yeah.
really kind of opened up for me. It was really neat because there was a coworker of mine who was he was a he was an alcoholic. He was super angry, but he really and like nobody liked working with him, but he loved working with me for some reason. I don't know why. Anyways, I got him to I got him to go to yoga with me, and like it was awesome seeing the shift in his life and his his mental attitude and his spiritual attitude. It was just amazing. It was that for me that was like, wow, this is, you know, yoga is really powerful.
How did you even inspire him to come join you? Like it didn't sound like he's the most open guy. And then how did he go from being maybe an unpleasant alcoholic to going to yoga with Cory?
Um, I think it was a number of things. Like, you know, he's a super smart guy, like really brilliant, like our software architect engineer, and he didn't have patience for a lot of people, and so I guess I was able to work with him well. Like he respected me on a work level, so it started there, and then I was able to like kind of talk to him in a different tone for a while. But then I start talking to him about yoga. Like, yeah, I'm going, you know, I'm doing yoga today. I'm like, they just start talking to him about it, and over time he became interested. I'm like, well, do you want to try it out? And he went to yoga with me, and again, it was a slow process. It wasn't like you need to do yoga. It was just me talking about it for a little while to start.
Yeah. And I mean, I think especially Ashtanga is a very rigorous practice. Like I remember when I originally went into that, it's like I actually appreciated the efficiency of it, that it was just a mat and me, and I was like done. And for me, it was a little bit similar like you. I think the first couple of years were completely about the physical aspect of the practice. So how did you experience the shift from having that connection on the physical level and maybe thinking about back pain to actually noticing there's something else to the practice?
You know, there's an internal, you know, your mind is supposed to be quiet when you're doing yoga, but it never is, for me at least, speaking for myself. And it's kind of interesting when you're tuned into the sensations of your body while in pose, then you start to realize like somehow humility sneaks in there. Like, okay, so I'm not the rock star I think I am. I can't do it as well as everyone else. And so you kind of eat some humble pie in the beginning. So you start being more introspective. And I think being more introspective in the body sensations causes you to be more introspective in your thoughts and your feelings. And it kind of gets
Yeah.
you more tuned into like, I mean, some of the philosophies of yoga just kind of creep in automatically.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But,
I mean, yeah, go ahead.
sorry, I was gonna say for me it was like all about peace. Like over time, I realized like I just felt more peaceful when I was doing yoga, especially when I was actually doing the yoga, and then when I got into meditation as well.
That helps, right?
It does, yeah, yeah. But again, over time.
Yes, over time.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've seen is that many yoga teachers, they don't quite have that financial aspect figured out. Like as I already said, I think they're kind of those two awakenings. One is kind of to the introspective and that dimension of our life, and I think a different one, as you coined it earlier, is to the financial aspect. And I think this is really why I'm recording this podcast in the first place, is because I think between those two, there's a life well lived. And how do you define success at this stage in your life where you're stepping into financial freedom for yourself? And you've also kind of coined your own path. How did you reach to that stage of defining success for yourself, and what does it mean for you?
From my perspective, I guess success would be when him being free from a job and then two, being able just to live with the basic necessities without having to worry about them. Like, can I afford it?
Yeah.
And in that sense of financial freedom. But yeah, I think that would be wonderful.
Yeah, I think that's. I love the point about like when you made about yoga teachers and finances, because it's so true. But anyways, for me, success is being able to do the things on our own terms. And there's a lot of things we want to do, but mostly like healthy bodies, healthy minds, healthy relationships are so important.
Yeah.
And then after that, like, I know Amy's really she wants to save all the dogs and cats in the world. For me, it's about food freedom. Really, I think our food system is just deplorable, and I want to be part. I would love to be part of the solution to that.
So what do you think is a solution that's well needed in the food system?
Where do we start? I think, like we were talking about, a lot of it's a mindset shift. Like we don't. I think a lot of us don't believe that what we put in our bodies really matters. Like I see my family, and it's all about how expensive is the food, more so than like how do we nourish ourselves with what we put in our bodies. I think there's too much. There's too much out there saying otherwise. I think there needs to be a shift back to saying that food really is medicine.
Yeah, and I think to talking about peeling away layers of concepts, I think when you spend some time observing it, it's actually rather obvious that this entire body is made up of the food we eat, right? We're just collecting it,
right,
and turning it into a body as we go on with our lives.
Yes, yeah, I love it.
So, Amy, you're actually a crazy cat lady in disguise. Is that what I'm hearing here?
So we all have a why to drive us to do what we want to do, and to get us to that financial freedom. And we've had some animals in our past, and
Yeah.
don't like the idea of kill shelters. So my dream would be to have like a no-kill compound in every state where all strays can go and live out their life.
Yeah. I actually think you will find a lot of people that jump in for your cause on that one if you can rally it properly. I feel like especially the social media is full of pet lovers, no, cats and dogs alike.
There are a lot, yes.
Could you syndicate that?
Probably.
And I was just watching some legal videos about syndication, and from what I hear, you can syndicate most investments. So there's something around probably pet shelters that can be syndicated.
Right.
Probably. I'm not sure any returns will be coming back though.
No.
It's the love and the gratitude,
Exactly.
There you go.
That's the true yield in this one.
Right.
And Cory, actually, as we're recording this, one of the things that's going on right now is a Save the Soil movement. And Isha Foundation from India is kicking off a 100-day rally where they're trying to, in partnership with the United Nations, bring awareness to soil and the quality of the soil we need in order to not only live a good life from a food perspective, but also to have food security and a healthy ecosystem in terms of climate change. So that's an interesting thing that actually coincidentally is going on right now.
Awesome. I will look into that.
Yeah.
I love what she does.
And so now that you've established your powerful why, how did you step through the objections that you faced? I mean, all of us that are trying to grow and do more, you've went through your first capital raise, and you raised a significant amount of money from investors to close your first deal. How did you step through those initial hurdles of maybe doubt?
Well, our more experienced partner told us that we have to think that we already have it done, like the deal is done, and that we also have an offering for people to benefit from. Rather than asking people for money, it's more like, we have this terrific opportunity for you, and I care about you, and I want you to benefit from this. But if you don't want it, that's fine. I'll offer it to someone else. And that kind of put us in a different mindset. So I think we were very fortunate to work with this partner to help guide us in that way.
Yeah. And I think ultimately it is somewhat a unique opportunity, because people that haven't been exposed to the kind of commercial real estate we're doing, they actually don't have access to those kind of returns, I think, with that lower level of risk. So I think in terms of risk-reward ratio and the actual returns, we do have some unique opportunities to give to the passive investors. So as a syndicator, how do you make sure that you have a certain level of safety for the investment that your passive investors give you, since you are at the end of the day kind of the guardian of their life savings? How do you make sure you're deploying that in the best interest of them?
Well, one, always keeping our investors at the top of our mind when we do things, but very probably like most syndicators, we're very methodical on our business plan. Like, we create a business plan even before we're doing our offerings to passive investors, and following through. So we have our business plan up front. We have a certain number of items that we want to do. For example, this property, it's an older property. The units are very, very classic, if you want to call it, meaning that they haven't been upgraded for quite some time. And when we walked in there, sometimes it was a little like, whoa, this is not a place that I would want to live.
Yeah.
So part of that is like, of course, it's a business, but changing the shape and the form and the perception of the property. It's still an older property, but we can still do things like paint, maybe rebrand it. That don't cost a lot of money, and then to make it really more attractive. And then as the tenant base kind of turns over, as they always do, we can do some upgrades to the units. But what we're going to do is kind of see like what levels of upgrades can we do. So like not spending too much money, given like the tenant base in the area that it's in, and it's in more of a B to C class area, so it's a working class area. Yeah. But still make it really, really nice and livable for the tenants. So really watching our money. So we have our plan, but adjusting to what's happening at the time, the economics of the time, et cetera, as we're integrating that business plan.
Yeah.
And we also have, we've made very conservative estimates. So while they say the market is hot, we still analyze the property and the business very conservatively in a sense of like, okay, we're not expecting to get this many returns, but when we could actually get to that level, but we just say, well, maybe we're at here instead, and just say, well, let's work with here, even though we could potentially get up to here for returns. Yeah. So when we do that, even when we're asking for our investors' money, it's like not being too frivolous with their life savings, and being very analytical in our approach.
Yeah. So, and what made you pick real estate compared to, for example, stocks or maybe even crypto? I'm not sure how much you dove into that aspect, but compared to other investments, why can you relate, or why did you choose multifamily real estate?
You want it? Okay. Have a mini argument here. So multifamily easy because especially larger one, because it scales better. We can partner with people with experience, and then eventually we can partner people and help other people who don't have as much experience. So it's really about leveraging, finding good teams, and multifamily is more of a business than it is a job. Like single family homes, like a lot of times you're working it hard. You're still working as a multifamily. I think for me, stocks. I saw my 401k and it was like, this is not going anywhere. Why am I putting all my money into this? And so I kind of equated stocks with 401ks. I know you can make money off of it, but I wanted something.
Did you buy a bunch of Russian stocks? Or?
Yeah, that was it. GameStop, actually. We wanted something that was physical, that was tangible, especially with inflation on the horizon and already here.
And that we had control to make the decision.
Right.
That another thing that forced us to have that awakening was seeing how poorly our 401ks were performing, our retirement funds.
Yeah.
And we're like, and then the fees involved in those products. And it's like, okay, we want to invest in green stocks. We want to invest in renewable energy sources. But whoever was our administrator wouldn't give us what we wanted. So we wanted more control over our retirement funds and where they were being invested and supporting the causes we believed in.
Yeah.
And since that wasn't happening, we wanted to get our money out and find a more stable asset to invest in.
I think many yoga teachers can very much relate to it, because I remember when I first got into investing, one of the issues maybe I had with the traditional 401k kind of ETF mutual fund dimension is that I have no idea where my money is going. And it could go in some pipeline building, or there's all kinds of things. Like one of the things I noticed, for example, CO2 neutral ETFs, they are nuclear powered. So there's all kinds of nuances that for me made it very unrelatable. And I think that's a common denominator between people that just care a bit more. I find them ending up in the real estate space because it's very tangible. It's an object. And I think just like with your first purchase, that property where you had a tenant that was a boutique shop, that actually changed kind of the picture of the neighborhood a little bit and brought a little bit of foot traffic and kind of revived that little corner. I think there's a very relatable and tangible impact for us in this.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally agree. 100%.
Yeah. So for someone who maybe would love to commit more of their time to what they care for, I mean, let them be yoga teachers or artists. What do you think is the most important part to start to step onto that path of financial independence?
Listen to yourself and just do it. I spent too many years doubting myself or being afraid that what others might think.
That's a good point.
I think that's a very general life lesson. It's like the earlier we stop caring about what other people think too much, we actually get going.
Yeah. And I don't know what I've learned. If you try something, if it doesn't work out, or if you don't like it, at least you tried it. It's not a bad thing. It's actually it's a really good thing. Just one more thing you can check off that you're not going to have a regret for trying.
Yeah.
I'm still working on that. I have an issue with not being perfect.
You would like to be perfect on everything?
Well, I want to over prepare so that I don't fail in something new, right? So analysis paralysis, and I don't get anywhere.
I was about to say that's an excuse for not doing anything, right?
Exactly. Right? So, like Cory said, just believe in what you know right now and just start taking small steps.
Yeah.
They lead to bigger ones.
And where can someone start their educational process? Like, what has helped you? I know you mentioned listening to podcasts? What are the different aspects that kind of helped you? Did you have any, besides the mentor or the partners you mentioned, did you have any key figures that actually stirred you in the right direction?
Specifically for real estate or with anything?
No, just, pursuing your personal independence, because, I think the information is out there, but just like you said, people doubt themselves. Or I think also one of the things I keep seeing is that people are like, oh, rich people, that this is like a whole different group of people. Like I couldn't be nice and independent, or I cannot be a nice rich yoga teacher, for example. But I think money is just mechanical, and anybody that kind of understands the mechanics, and I would argue that if you spend an hour a week, you can eventually become financially independent. It's not that you need to become a rocket scientist on stocks, crypto, or general finances.
Yeah.
Well, do you want us to name a book? Or
Yeah, for example, I mean, whatever worked for you. I mean, if you maybe you just did it and you didn't read any books. I don't know.
No, I definitely needed to read something because of my background, but something to prove that it could be done was the thing that started me thinking outside my box was that book called Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah.
By Robert Kiyosaki.
So what you just mentioned, you felt like you needed someone that has done it already. Do you feel like it's important for people to have that role model, that they can see that somebody has walked that path already and you can relate to them and you can do it yourself?
I think a lot of people do, especially people who you want to follow along and join you in this path of financial freedom, is that they want to see you having done it and think, okay, I guess it's a legitimate thing.
Yeah.
Before they step behind you and say, okay, let's try this out ourselves. They want to see someone else try it and see if it works.
That's interesting. So you're actually saying, okay, if I follow someone, then they need to prove it first, but at the same time it kind of takes away from, I don't fully explore my potential without them. It's like two things in this statement, right? Because if I just explore anything that I could possibly do, I might do it without someone as a role model, right?
They could, yeah, if they believe strongly enough in that thing, then sure.
So where do you want to take this from here? Like you've made your first couple investments now, and you got your first properties. What is like the next couple steps where you want to take this to ultimately build out statewide, nationwide cat shelters?
Gosh, I don't know.
Step number 2, continue the process. Obviously, we have a limited amount of money for investment, but we like to do 1 or 2 more properties as a general partner within this next year to start. What do you think?
I don't know, just continue learning about the whole process. I mean, we got into multifamily syndication, but we didn't know every aspect about it. So we're also learning on this property that we got recently about asset management and what that involves. So it's a whole other learning that we're doing right now.
Yeah. So, Cory, do you have it scheduled out the day you walk away from your W-2, what that's going to be like?
I don't right now. We originally said at the end of this year, so we can keep that date.
You've ordered the band and the balloons?
Yeah.
All hired.
Right. Polka man.
Yeah, you just walk out with a big bam. Then
right.
It's like, done. Throw in the towel. So what is the thing you love to do most with your spare time? And I mean, as we are on that journey, we're all kind of getting our time back. Where do you like to spend your time most, and what gives you that sense of fulfillment in life?
To be honest, for me, it's being able to get back to my practice, because I feel like I don't have enough time for my practice, my yoga practice. And that would be nice. That's part of the reason of getting that time freedom, is to look after my health.
Yeah.
And then and also to take care of my parents. I mean, that's kind of the reason why I kind of feel passionate about getting passive income and being free from a job, is so that we can visit my parents more often, who are out of state. They are elderly, and my father has followed the path that we had said. Got a good job, worked all, so many 3 decades, and retired, and he's not healthy enough to enjoy his retirement, and I don't like that. I don't want that for us either. So
yeah. I think that's also one of the things that inspires me to get up early every day, eat well, do my yoga, and keep running, is because I see that down the road. I have that observation, the old ache pains, because I'm not going to start doing it when I'm 65 if I don't do it now.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So Cory, what is that sense of fulfillment for you like?
Anything outside, like building my garden, creating what I originally wanted to create on our property, which is just like a haven for clean food and animals, and etc. And enjoying the nature, and eventually letting people come here and enjoy it.
So you're building a little Garden of Eden for us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Nice. So, Amy, you mentioned that your father kind of did what you know. How do you make sure that the people you love and care for around you also maybe break through that crust, as Cory put it earlier, that the financial wisdom, or not so much wisdom, that we got installed on the software? Like, how do you inspire them to maybe make a shift? Because one of the things that I keep seeing is it's actually hard to inspire people to do what we do if they're not ready for it. And I would argue the same is probably true for yoga, health, pretty much anything.
Everyone has, I think, some pain points, right? Like, for us, for Cory, it's actually having a W-2 job. And, for me, it's my dad's health, my health. Those are pain points that inspire us to try to be doing better with our money. So I guess it's just having a conversation with someone and having them think on themselves, like, what is their pain and how can they reach that, and how would they get there? Sorry, maybe what could they do if they had unlimited money?
Yeah.
Right? If they didn't have to spend the time to earn that money, what could they do with that?
Yeah.
What means the most to them?
Yeah, that's an interesting way to put it. I think about 10 years ago, a little bit over 10 years ago, I saw a video called "What If Money Was No Object" from Alan Watts. And that kind of really stirred my head up a little bit, because most people probably never asked themselves, what would I do if money were no object?
Right.
Because most of us live under those constraints.
You do.
Right.
You do.
We need to trade our time in for money because we need the money to live. Well, what if you had that money without having to spend the time to get it?
Right. And I feel like when people actually reach that level of financial security, the natural tendency for not all, but many, is to start giving back to community, or maybe, for example, investing their skills and time into building Garden of Eden that one day we can have a picnic in together.
Right, exactly.
I think that the most people kind of reach that level of financial independence the more relaxed things get at a larger scale. People will kind of have some room to breathe and bring their best to the table.
Couldn't agree more.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Well, awesome. Amy and Cory, thank you so much for being with me today and for your time. And it was lovely to have this conversation with you. And I'm looking forward to sitting in the Garden of Eden with you.
Looking forward to having you there. And thank you for having us on. It's been great. It's been fun.
Yes. Thank you very much, Hans.
Thank you for joining us at The Path to Wealth. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Check out our upcoming guests and be sure to share it with all your friends and family that want to take their life to the next level of wealth.